We've all been there, right? You've got a big exam coming up, so you pour hours and hours into studying. You're up late, rereading your notes, highlighting pages until they're neon yellow, rewatching lectures. You feel like you're putting in the work. But here's the thing, a lot of that time is probably being wasted.
So it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When it comes to learning, is all that effort, is studying harder, really the best way to get things to stick?
The short answer? Nope, not even close. The real secret, the thing that actually gets results, isn't studying harder, it's studying smarter. If you really want to learn more in less time and actually remember it, you've got to understand how your brain is actually wired to learn.
So let's break this down. First, we're going to talk about the big problem with how most people study. Then, we'll get into 3 powerhouse science-backed techniques: active recall, spaced repetition, and something called the testing effect. And finally, we'll put it all together into a brand new study system you can start using, like, today. All right, first up, the big problem. So many of the study habits we think are helping us, they're actually creating what's called an illusion of progress. You feel like you're learning, but you're really just spinning your wheels.
And this is really the heart of it. On one side, you've got all that passive stuff, like rereading. It creates this false sense of familiarity. You recognize the information, sure, but that's totally different from being able to recall it from scratch. It's a huge trap. On the other side, you have the active methods, the ones that force your brain to actually do the work and build real, lasting knowledge. And that's what we're going to dive into.
Let's start with the first game changer: active recall. The best way to think about this is the difference between trying to passively push information into your brain versus actively pulling it out.
So here's the deal. Instead of just staring at your notes again, you force your brain to remember the information all on its own. It sounds so simple, but it changes everything. See, every time you struggle a bit to remember something, you're not failing, you're actually strengthening the connection for that memory in your brain. The very act of remembering is what makes the memory stronger.
And this quote just nails it. That feeling of mental strain, that little struggle you feel when you're trying to pull an answer out of thin air, that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. That is the learning happening in real time. It feels harder than just reading, for sure, but that productive struggle is exactly what builds solid, long-term knowledge.
So how do you actually do this? It's super simple. You finish reading a chapter, close the book, and try to summarize it out loud. Turn the headings in your textbook into questions and see if you can answer them. Use flashcards, but always start with the question side. Or try to teach the concept to a friend. You could even just grab a blank piece of paper and scribble down everything you can remember before you look at your notes.
Okay, on to our second method, which is like the perfect sidekick to active recall: spaced repetition. If active recall is about how you review, this one is all about when you review. And trust me, timing is everything.
You know, our brains are literally built to forget things over time. Spaced repetition is like a hack for that system. By reviewing information at the perfect moment, right when you're about to forget it, you're basically sending a huge signal to your brain that says, hey, this stuff is important, keep it. It strengthens the memory way more than cramming. It's kind of like watering a plant, right? You got to do it at the right intervals, not all at once.
So what does this actually look like? Well, you might review something new on the first day you learn it, then you check it again maybe 2 days later, then a week later, then 2 weeks, and so on. Every time you get it right, the time between reviews gets longer because the memory is getting stronger. You're not studying more, you're just being way more strategic about it.
And let me tell you, this technique is an absolute powerhouse for anything that needs memorizing. We're talking vocabulary, key definitions, math formulas, historical dates, scientific concepts, you name it. If you need to lock something into your long-term memory, this is your go-to tool.
And that brings us to our third and final method. And this one, well, it might just flip your whole idea of testing upside down. Most of us think tests are just for getting a grade, but science shows they are one of the best ways to actually learn in the first place.
The testing effect is this wild discovery that the act of quizzing yourself actually strengthens your memory more than just rereading the material. In other words, a test isn't just an assessment tool, it's a seriously powerful learning tool. Every time you try to answer a question without looking at your notes, you're practicing that skill of retrieving and organizing the information. Think of it this way. Testing yourself is like a diagnostic and a workout all in one. It does 2 amazing things. First, it immediately shows you where your weak spots are, so you know exactly where to focus your time. And second, it actually helps lower your anxiety for the real exam. The more you practice pulling up information under a little bit of pressure, the more the real test just feels like another practice round.
And you can start doing this from day one. Don't wait until the night before the test. Use practice quizzes, find old exam questions, even just use your flashcards. The key is to make self-testing a regular, normal part of how you study, not some big, scary final step.
So we've got these 3 killer principles: active recall, spaced repetition, and the testing effect. How do we actually combine them into one simple system that works? Let's put it all together.
Here it is, your new 4-step study loop. It's super simple. Step 1, learn the material. Watch the lecture, read the chapter, but do it briefly. Step 2, immediately use active recall to pull the big ideas from your memory. Step 3, use the testing effect and quiz yourself with some practice questions. And Step 4, schedule your reviews using spaced repetition. This little loop is so much more efficient than just rereading for hours on end.
You know, this system also helps you dodge all those classic study traps. It keeps you from rereading too much or highlighting everything in sight because you're focused on recall. It completely prevents cramming because spaced review is built in from the very beginning. And maybe the most important thing, it teaches you to lean into that productive struggle instead of running from it.
If you only take one thing away from all this, let it be this. Real, effective learning isn't supposed to feel easy. It's not supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to feel like a workout for your brain. Active recall, spaced repetition, and the testing effect. They aren't the easiest methods, but they're the ones that work, because they make your brain do the heavy lifting.
So, the next time you sit down to study, just remember this. You don't need more hours. You just need better methods. Focus on these 3 simple actions. Recall the information actively, review it at spaced intervals, and test yourself constantly. That is how you study smarter, not harder.